Welcome to the Too Much to Say podcast, where we have too much to say. Episode 20. Too Much to Say ranks the best picture winners 2008 to 2017. So the last 10 years, we're going to be breaking down those best picture winners and how they stand up to each other. But first, I want to welcome everybody out on twitch.tv/2m2ls. We welcome you all out. We are live 8:30 p.m. every Tuesday and every Saturday. Tuesday is culture and politics, and Saturday is sports and esports. So, if you're catching us on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, or whatever podcast provider you are finding us on, if you want to catch us live, it is a live video stream. You can come get the full experience if you want, and we even we have a little Q&A session afterwards for anything you guys want to break down. But we appreciate you listening no matter where you're coming from. So let's go ahead and hop into the weekly random. Today we're gonna not shake anything up and start and we're going to start with a Donald Trump tweet, because our boy Donnie T, I mean, I don't know, I just imagine this is what it'd be like if I had a racist grandfather that was slowly losing his mind and was president and had access to Twitter. If he didn't have Twitter, I mean, he'd just be a quiet racist, I guess. But since he has Twitter, we get to Twitter and no self-control. Sorry, let me not forget that part. Since he has Twitter and no self-control, we get to hear all the inner workings of his little racist mind. And what he hit us with today, if you hadn't heard about it, Omarosa Mingalt or something to that effect, who was on The Apprentice with Trump back when he was a non-presidential reality TV star. He made her, he hired her at the White House, and then he fired her, and now she's writing a book. He actually fired her, I think it was like 6 or 8 months ago, so it's been a little bit, but now she's written a book, and she's making the media tour, and this is what Donald Trump has to say about it. When you give a crazed, crying lowlife a break and give her a job at the White House, I guess it just didn't work out. Good work by General Kelly for quickly firing that dog. I mean, like, what are you doing, man? So basically what's coming out, one of Omarosa's claims against him is that he says the N-word, which he refutes. It's pretty hard to refute the claim that you use epithets, racial epithets against people or about people or just in general when you are then actively calling a black woman a dog on Twitter. It's not that hard to not. like you can, I mean, coming out and well, quote unquote defending yourself is probably fine, but to then you just got to throw in calling her a dog. If this wasn't real, A, it'd be a lot funnier, but B, it just wouldn't be believable. I mean, this would be just a shitty B movie, like, that would never happen. No one would ever elect someone that stupid and that racist, this much of a caricature of a racist bigot and an idiot. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is real life. So this is what we have. We have a racist president who calls, well, always comments on what women look like when he's mad at them, but also just calls them dogs and belittles them and that sort of thing. So we can just, add another one to the Trump Twitter Hall of Shame. Next up in our weekly roundup is good news. So recently, Paul Manafort is on trial for his involvement. I mean, yeah, for his involvement in everything. And Robert, the good news here is from everything we can tell, everything is going well with the trial. No hiccups. Gates actually came out and testified against against Paul Manafort. But what's very encouraging is that Robert Mueller has requested that the Trump-related portion of Manafort's trial be kept secret because it revealed substantive evidence. If you're following this at all, following any part of the potential Trump impeachment, indictment, and all that is very encouraging. We're definitely moving in the right direction, and it's great. I mean, with the number of indictments that have come out, I've been very encouraged regardless. I have a lot of faith in Robert Mueller. It's pretty hard at this point to imagine that nothing's going to come of the investigation. I mean, we literally have the president, a nominee for the president of the United States coming out and asking Russia on television to hack his political opponent. So, I don't know how that, I mean, just because you do something in public doesn't make it okay. I mean, they literally acted on it that same day. Anyway, great news coming out of the Paul Manafort trial. Moving in the right direction. Now now we're going to go back down a little bit. And this is actually, in my opinion, another indictment of Trump. Let us all remember Hurricane Katrina, which was essentially George W. Bush's shame. I mean, the government under George W. Bush reacted poorly to support the Americans in Hurricane Katrina, the devastation that came from Hurricane Katrina. Well, the Puerto Rican government has now admitted that instead of 64 people dying in the hurricane this year, it was 1,427. And the United States government's response to the hurricane in Puerto Rico has been an absolute abomination. The amount of time. Hold on. I'm going to Google this real quick. How long did Puerto? Yeah, there it is. So on June 20th, 2018, thousands still lacked power in Puerto Rico. Oh, sorry, excuse me. It has been. I mean, Puerto Rico still doesn't have full power. It's 328 days, and we still don't. This is a U.S. territory. These are U.S. protectorates. This isn't a third world country. This isn't even somebody like Cuba who we can disown and say, oh, you're nobody to us because, you're communist and whatever. This is a U.S. territory. And Donald Trump's government, and let's be honest, Congress, both sides, being all the Republicans, all the blame that we put on Donald Trump should be evenly spread amongst the Republican Congress, senators, House reps, and let's be honest, any Democrat who votes for Trump's initiatives. I get it, some of you are in partially red states, but guess what? It's time to grow up. It's time to do the right thing. It's time to vote correctly. It's been 328 days since Puerto Rico's had full power. It's absolutely abhorrent. And 1,400 people died in Hurricane Maria. It's pathetic. And everyone in Congress should be ashamed. Unless you've been actively campaigning for it since then, you should be ashamed. This is a problem that needs to be fixed. Pure and simple. All right, to move into something lighter, I suppose. Coming from NPR, Paris. Oh, let's just go with the title. It is Nope. Those aren't mailboxes. Paris rolls out sidewalk urinals. So, Paris. Hold on. Let me bring up a picture. You guys have got to see this one. This is fantastic. Here, let me go to. All right, there we go. This gentleman right here in what looks like a trash can is peeing, or maybe he's just posing. But that right there, that is a toilet. It looks like one of the a old school trash can that you find at McDonald's, like the big, but it's red, and it's got a picture, like a sign on top of it with a picture that shows a guy just leaning back and peeing into it. They call it a urido-trottoir, or uritrottoir. So, like, a direct translation would be pee sidewalk. Because Paris apparently has a lot of issues with drunk people peeing. So they're trying, not that we want people peeing into things anywhere in public, except like in public rather than in a bathroom. It's still better to have them pee into this like trash can than have them just whip it out and pee on the street. It's sad that they have to do this, but I'll give them this. It's a unique solution to a very unfortunate problem. It's just hilarious. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. All right. So let's hop into. It was a nice way to bring the mood back up after. We're gonna go straight into the Reddit shower thoughts of the week, because I got a couple today. I got a couple. There were just too many. I couldn't resist them. We're gonna do 3. This is good stuff. All right, number 1. This comes from user Common Scholar, and he says, being attracted to people who wear glasses is the one fetish for physically impaired that's socially acceptable. just let that one. I think that just give that a moment. Just let your mind be filled with other fetishes for the physically impaired. Number 2. This comes from Xenomorphs at Disney. Cute names like Trash Panda and Danger Noodle would probably be considered slurs in Zootopia. You think about that next time you want to call a snake a Danger Noodle or a raccoon a Trash Panda. If they were anthropomorphic animals, they might get offended. Fantastic. Number 3, coming from Dissociative Socio, the fact that our body knows the difference between a gas and a solid, and which is safe to expel at any given time, is greatly underappreciated. This goes both ways. Literally up, and down. We don't want solids escaping unexpectedly either way. I do think what's very interesting about these 3 shower thoughts, and I don't know if it's like intentional, is that the usernames attached to them are very like very apropos. Like the one about the fetish for sunglasses is Common Scholar. The one about the animal nicknames in Zootopia is Xenomorphs at Disney, and the one about farting and burping is Dissociative Socio, which is just lucky, I guess. Just lucky, I guess. All right. To close out, before we hop into the top 10 rankings, I did want to shout out a couple of pieces of media that I've been listening to recently. First off, we're going to go book recommendations, and I don't know if you've ever heard of Malcolm Gladwell, but first off, check out everything he's done, but specifically Outliers. Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell is a phenomenal book, start to finish. The research that he's put into it, the ideas that he's espousing, and the manner in which he goes about it. I actually finally got my wife to start reading it, and what she said is every Republican needs to read this. It really digs into the idea of just the naturally talented and how it's basically a fraud. That no one is just naturally talented. The idea of 10,000 hours comes in from this. You ever heard that it takes 10,000 hours? Heck, Macklemore did a whole song about it. But the idea that it takes 10,000 hours to become great at something, this comes from him in Outliers. And I mean, it's fantastic, truly. I 100% recommend Outliers. Like, without reservation, I can recommend it. Another one, if you have enjoyed, it's been a couple weeks now, because last week was Hillary. So 2 weeks ago, we did part 2 of How to Fix America. 4 weeks ago, we did part 1 of How to Fix America. And we're going to do part 3 probably next week. Just wanted to throw some culture in since I went full politics 2 weeks in a row. But we'll probably go part 3 next week. But if you enjoyed part 1 and part 2, if you enjoyed part 2, check out part 1. But if you enjoyed both of them, what I recommend a podcast called The Wilderness by the ironically named company Crooked Media. And now this podcast is directed towards the Democratic Party. And it is, I don't know, it's fascinating. I feel like the last couple episodes had some reaches and conclusions, like they had some logical reaches, but the first few episodes are wonderful. I mean, I recommend listening to all of it. I'd start at the beginning. This is truly an iterative podcast. Like, you start 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't really want to skip. This isn't a weekly podcast that's telling you the news or anything like that. It's breaking things down on how the Democratic Party can fix itself, essentially, and get out of the quote-unquote political wilderness, which hence the name, The Wilderness. I wholly recommend it, and I mean, I've really enjoyed it. You actually, this last 2 weeks, some of the ideas that they came up with, this last week, they had 2 episodes come out this week, you'll find a lot of similar ideas that I've espoused earlier, I guess a couple weeks ago, and it was almost like, hey, you guys need to stop stealing the stuff. But hey, I just want more people out there with those ideas. So I loved The Wilderness. And I'll be honest, guys, if you enjoyed How to Fix America Part 1, How to Fix America Part 2, those are the type of podcasts definitely to share with your friends who would enjoy them. Like, this podcast isn't for everybody. I know. There's a lot of liberal things going on here, and a lot of progressive ideas, a lot of things, a way to move forward. And even amongst my friends and my family, like, one of the reasons I started the podcast was to be able to share these with people who would care about them. So if you had people who you think would care about those ideas, like, get them out there. I mean, not just for my podcast's sake, but I mean for America's sake, because we need some change. We need change. We need to move in the correct direction. And I really do feel like those podcasts represent at least a piece of that. Not even all of it. I mean, there's still another part to come, and I probably still won't cover everything, but they are definitely pieces to the correct direction. All right, there's my soapbox. Let's hop in this week to ranking the Best Picture winners from the last 10 years. So that'd be 2008 to 2017. Go all the way to the top here. Boom. All right. On the nominations, we have Spotlight. This little program sometimes, I tell you what. Oh, where's my spreadsheet? There's my spreadsheet. Cool. We have Spotlight coming out in 2015. Spotlight was the basic plot of Spotlight. There's going to be spoilers. These are all old movies, so if you're coming to listen to my breaking down the Oscars, there's going to be spoilers. Maybe I should. Let me bring these up in order. So let's get ready to Spotlight. Let's start at the beginning and move forward. All right. So in 2008, Slumdog Millionaire came out and won Best Picture. This was a story about a young Indian boy growing up in the slums who they tell the story of his life through the questions of who wants to be a millionaire and how he answers all these questions, all the different experiences that led to him being able to answer the questions. Because in the movie, they don't believe that he could answer these questions where everybody else had failed. But through some amazing circumstance, every single question, he has to answer every single question thanks to his unique life experiences growing up as a slum dog. So in 2009, The Hurt Locker came out. Man, I just keep grabbing things other than the dang. All right, there we go. Come on, little guy. The Hurt Locker came out. This is the story of bomb defusing military over in, I believe it's Afghanistan at this point. And it's basically, in my opinion, the PTSD experiences, like what the trauma that's caused by this. It's really the story of them, but at the end of the day, the story's more about how it affects the person and how. I mean, at the end of the movie, Jeremy Renner, who becomes basically the main character of the movie, he comes home to his wife. He finishes his tour of duty after, hundreds of successful bomb defusings, and then he basically packs up and goes back to war and signs back up because he's so messed up. Oh, didn't mean to cover that up. 2010 brought us The King's Speech. Oh, there it is. This is the story of, I want to say, King George. I don't want to be wrong here, though. Yeah, King. Hey, there we go. The future King George IV, who it's his story of overcoming a stammer with a therapist. That sounds like a super boring movie, but really thanks to the performances of Jeffrey Rush as the therapist and Colin Firth as King George, they managed to make it, well, an Oscar winner, a Best Picture winner. Whether or not we agreed with that, we'll talk about that later, but it still is a really great movie. Coming in 2011 is one of our more unique movies, The Artist. What makes The Artist so unique is that it is a mostly silent film. And the one movie that I basically fell asleep during. Because there wasn't any. Yeah. But fantastically made. It is the story of a silent film star, George Valentin. Maybe I don't know if it's. No, but probably Valentine. George Valentine, who basically struggles with the transition from silent film to movies with sound, and the difficulty, and it is a very well made movie, and a rightful place on this list as such. I guess I could also. So The Artist was nominated for 10 Academy Awards. Well, actually, we'll go back and do some. Let's start with Slumdog. So back, Slumdog was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, and it won 8 Academy Awards. One of the 10 Academy Awards it was nominated for, or 2 of them were for Best Song. It won one of those 2. So it lost to itself. The most it could have won is 9, and it won 8. It won Best Picture, obviously, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Original Score, Best Original Song, and Best Sound Mixing. The Hurt Locker was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, and it won 6. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Sound Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Film Editing. The King's Speech was nominated for 12 Academy Awards, but it only won 4. Best Picture, Best Actor for Colin Firth, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay. And The Artist was nominated for 10 and won 4 as well. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Costume Design. And if I'm not mistaken, the actor was the first actor. Where is his? Yeah, first. His name is Dujardin, Jean Dujardin. He was the first French actor to ever win Best Actor. Next up, in 2012, was Argo. Why am I blanking on his name? Wow. I can see his face. Alright, I have to Google it. Why can't... What is this? Oh my goodness. What a time. Ben Affleck. Good gracious. So, just a little bit of Ben Affleck's first movie was with Matt Damon, when they did. This is a rough one for me. I got all these 10 movies in my head, and I can't. Good Will Hunting was his first movie, and everyone was convinced that he was going to be a star, which he did become. I mean, he's been in several. He's had, by all accounts, he's had a very successful movie career. I mean, that's I think to not be refuted, right? I mean, if you pull up his IMDb, he's got movies. He's been in how many movies? But basically, he became kind of a pop actor afterwards, doing movies like Armageddon, um, Pearl Harbor, Daredevil, which is just miserable, Geely, which was probably the nadir of his career, a movie with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez that couldn't get off the ground. And basically, people had kind of, in some way, given up on him as a serious actor until he kind of had a revolution, kind of basically a revel. Yeah, he evolved into a director essentially, coming out with Gone Baby Gone, and then The Town, and then Argo. With this movie being obviously, he didn't win Best Director for it, but obviously winning Best Picture, and is winning Best Picture is always, in many ways, a feather in a director's cap, regardless of whether or not you receive, Best Actor. So Argo came out. It was nominated for 7 awards. It won 3: Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Film Editing. In 2013, came out 12 Years a Slave. Now, I'm going to be honest, this was the hardest one for me. I got through all the other movies. This one I couldn't get through. This one was... It's a story of a free African American who lives in the North at the time of, in basically antebellum United States, when slavery was still around, obviously, 12 years a slave, who basically gets tricked into coming to Washington, D.C. The man is a professional violinist, a very talented violinist, and they trick him, we're going to take you to D.C. and, perform a bunch of shows, make a bunch of money, and we'll bring you back, essentially. And while they do go to D.C. and they do make some money, but then they sell him to a slaver who takes him back claiming that he's a slave. Takes him away from his family, and beat him. And that was the part that I have a strong stomach, but if there's one thing, if you've listened to this podcast at all, I guess, is civil human rights is a big one for me, and this was very painful to watch. I am going to finish it, but this was intense. It was nominated for 9 Academy Awards and won 3: Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress, and Best Adapted Screenplay. In 2014, we were brought Birdman. This one is this was a much lighter movie, but man, this is a kooky movie. This is a Michael Keaton. And it is about yeah, Michael Keaton. I was like, goodness. I mean, it's about basically an American actor. It's about an actor who's past his prime. He made a bunch of money off of superhero movies, and then has kind of just faded. But and so he's finally ended up the on the stage in New York City to try to revive his career. He, as he does this, however, he kind of starts to go insane and starts to hear his superhero, Birdman, talk to him and coach him through all these things. This is a fantastic movie. That's a general synopsis. Definitely recommend checking it out. It was nominated for 9 Academy Awards. It won 4 Academy Awards with Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Cinematography. Coming up in 2015 was Spotlight. There we go. The story of the Boston Globe uncovering the Catholic Church sex scandal. And the name Spotlight comes from and actually this is another Michael Keaton movie. His movies won 2 back-to-back, Best Picture back-to-back, which you gotta feel good as as a lead actor to get to have 2 Best Pictures under your, even though he didn't win, any Best Actor, still feels pretty good to have that under your belt. This was nominated for 6 not 6 awards, winning 2 Best Picture and Best Original Screenplay. Oh yeah, but Spotlight came from the division within the Boston Globe that was responsible for uncovering the scandal, the horror, the absolute devastating. I mean, just crazy. The horrors of the Catholic Church, essentially. 2016 brought us another light, but this one's called Moonlight. And this is the story of a young black gay man growing up. And it features basically everything that he's gone through, the difficult life, but also it's fascinating. What's so fascinating about Moonlight is the way they break it down into 3 separate acts with 3 separate actors bringing together one story. This is the famous La La Land goof up where they announced La La Land as the winner, and then Moonlight was actually the winner. And in 2017, we were brought Fish Sex, or The Shape of Water. Now, I'm going to be honest, this one surprised me, because I didn't see all of these in the year that they came out. Some of these I have seen before, but I've rewatched all of them. But this one, everyone had drummed it up as Fish Sex, Fish Sex, Fish Sex. But this is a movie about an amphibian man who is captured by the U.S. government and tortured because they think that they can somehow, this is going to give them the edge in going to the moon against the Soviets. It's framed in that era. But at the same time, there is a mute maid who takes compassion and pity upon him subsequently falls in love with him, helps him to escape, and eventually make it into the water. The whole fish sex concept is completely overblown, which was shocking to me because that's what everyone had told me, is that this was about fish sex, and it's not. There's a couple of scenes where they like she's naked and they hold each other and that's all they show. Yeah, it wasn't fish sex. I'm just saying it wasn't that. So, The Shape of Water. Oh, did I cover? Oh, sorry. Moonlight was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, won 3 in Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Adapted Screenplay. The Shape of Water was nominated for 13 awards, but only won 4. For Best Production Design, Best Original Score, Best Director, and Best Picture. And I'll be honest, Best Production Design was well merited. It was, in many ways, for me, the highlight of the movie. The production is, the design and the sets and all that are just stupendous. Alright. That's our little breakdown of the movies to get everyone up on the pace. Just as for highest, let's just do total gross. Highest grossing of all these movies goes to The King's Speech with $414 million. Second highest grossing was Slumdog Millionaire, and the lowest grossing was The Hurt Locker. All right, so let's break these down. I'm gonna rank these 3 separate times. I'm gonna rank them by my enjoyment, how much I enjoyed the movies. Second will be by technical ranking, and then third will be the overall ranking. So let me bring up my little ranking. All right, here we go. For enjoyment, number 1 goes. Oh, so let's go. That's sorry, not number 1. Number 10 in the enjoyment goes to The Artist. It is a technically beautiful film. However, which we'll get to later, like I told you, I basically fell asleep during this movie. I just can't make these match up. My goodness. There we go. I can't do the silent film. I am spoiled by our day and age. So the fact that I fell asleep during it, I had to give it a number 10. Number 9 goes to The Hurt Locker. Overall, I honestly don't understand why this movie won. To me, this movie, it's just nothing special. It is different from all the other war movies. Most war movies celebrate war. They celebrate the violence. This movie is more about, like I said before, kind of the PTSD of the war and how it negatively affects you. It's not like it's a bad movie. It's just not special. It's not a special movie. Number 7. You know, here I am on. Yeah. Hold on. Let me. This is 9. Oh, sorry, I'm at number 8, aren't I? I'm at number 8. It's in front of me, and I'm saying it wrong. Cool. All right. Number 8 goes to Spotlight. This one kind of falls into the similar category of Hurt Locker, and except I support both of the messages of the movie, but neither of them are just special. This is the message. Obviously, here is 100% accurate. The horrors of the Catholic Church committed in Boston, Massachusetts, and in the Massachusetts in general, and actually around the world, needed to be revealed, and this is a great story for that. But I felt like both of these were in here based on their messages, not based on overall film quality. It's not that they're bad movies, but they're just not special movies. For The Hurt Locker, I would have given the award to Up. I thought Pixar's Up was stupendous in every way. For Spotlight, I would have given it to either The Revenant or The Big Short. I thought both of those were just better movies overall. We'll do better nominees afterwards. We'll do those afterwards. But those I've shared those too. Okay. We'll have more. Not for every single one of these. Some of these are better. Number 7 comes in The Shape of Water. This, like I said before, this one actually surprised me. At the end of the day, I don't think that the narrative is that great. It's fine. It's just not a special story. The maid runs into the experiment, falls in love with the experiment, helps the experiment leave. They eventually get caught, and they eventually make it off in safety. Like, it's a beautifully made movie. If anything, it won for that. Personally, I would have given the award to Dunkirk. I thought that technically Dunkirk was just a better movie. I think that I wasn't going to do this, but I thought that Nolan's Dunkirk was better from a technical perspective, from a narrative perspective. His ability, maybe they just viewed as him showing off because he can take 3 narratives and weave them in together, but it's an amazing movie. And not, like I said, it's narrative plays a big part into this for me. The narrative needs to be original and somewhat groundbreaking, in my opinion, for a Best Picture. All right. And number 6. Coming in at number 6 is Moonlight. Mind you, these are for enjoyment. Now this Moonlight is actually, I thought Moonlight's a really good movie. Actually, it's kind of 7 above, I think, are all really good movies. I didn't enjoy 8 through 9, but I really do love 1 through 7. No, I mean it's a good movie. It's not as enjoyable as the others. It's a harder movie to get through. From it, the story's just heavier. With I guess what feels like not as much of a payoff. It doesn't. Movies can go down, but they don't. I need them to come back up as far as they went down, and this one doesn't feel like it does that. But it is a beautifully told story, and it's a coming of age story. It's someone's journey, which, I mean, I think we should all. I don't know. I think we should all be able to appreciate it. I mean, that's and to tell the story of someone's life who was so difficult. I could definitely appreciate it. It was a wonderful movie. If you're in the mood for a heavy drama, I recommend Moonlight. Coming in at number 5 is The King's Speech. Now, the King's Speech, like I said earlier, the King's Speech is one of the most boring concepts I could possibly imagine. I don't know about the most boring, but I mean, it's pretty higher up there from you know, the presumptive king getting over his stammer with a therapist. But honestly, Colin Firth and Jeffrey Rush, I'd have to look at the other nominees, but it's hard for me to believe that Jeffrey Rush didn't deserve to win because he's fantastic. Him and Colin Firth are both wonderful. Um, like I said, from a narrative perspective, it sounds horrible, but from an execution perspective, it was done very beautifully, and the performances from the two actors really make the movie. Obviously, I mean, I think that they did a great job. The director obviously did a fantastic job, kind of pulling it all together for something that had. And he actually won Best Original Screenplay. Now, this is somewhat tainted because the distribution company was Weinstein, while he still held a lot of sway. I actually, for me, I would have had either. There were 3 movies in this year that I would have given the award to over King's Speech. I would have given it to The Social Network, Inception, or The Fighter over this movie. I've had this number 4. But number 4 coming in is 12 Years a Slave. It was hard for me to punish 12 Years a Slave because of the difficulty I had getting through it. It is a beautifully made movie, and it's no fault of the movie that I I struggled with and actually I would say it is to the credit of the movie that I struggled so deeply with the pain of the protagonist. Number 3, I have Argo. Now, Argo, I don't think I covered Argo. Argo is this, I just covered Ben Affleck. Argo is the story of a rescue made by the CIA at the end, basically when Iran was taking back over itself after, basically when Argo. I have it open. So Jimmy Carter. When Jimmy Carter gave asylum to the Shah of Iran, the U.S. embassy was overrun, and the Canadian the ambassador from Canada gave shelter to many diplomats in Iran. And this is their story of their rescue out of Iran by creating a movie. A fake movie and that they were all members of a Canadian film crew trying to escape, or not trying to escape, but they were there scouting, for tourism. They were out there to scout, seeing what's the word, to shooting locations. There we go. And their rescue and how the CIA pulled that off. So, very, very, very interesting movie. Number 2, I have Birdman. Now, this one is probably the weirdest. If we were doing superlatives, I would have this as the weirdest movie. But it's just so kooky. And so, I love the dysphoria how his dysphoria is presented through Birdman. I love how he's able to really break in. I mean, just how how well it is. Well, how well it's done. What did they win? It won. Oh yeah, best cinematography, best original screenplay, and best director. I mean, the cinematography is amazing. The way that they're able to present his like lunacy and to like the back and forth. I'm surprised who won best actor for this. I gotta know. Best actor. No. Best actor 2014. See if that was a Eddie Redmayne in The Theory of Everything. I'm gonna disagree. I give it to Michael Keaton. I thought he was fantastic. I thought he was magnificent. I mean, you could argue that this was him trying to be that, but he was magnificent. So thoroughly recommend. And my final, obviously my number one, is Slumdog Millionaire. I had seen this like back like soon after it came out. After it was on, I don't think it's on the theaters, but soon after it came out on DVD. But rewatching, I was completely blown away by how much I enjoyed it. It was, I mean, it really was fantastic. This is a great movie. The cinematography, the plot, the acting, and then also like to be able to weave in message at the same time. I do feel like a lot of movies in the Oscars are driven by message, but not necessarily always by quality. Like Spotlight and Hurt Locker, I didn't feel like were that great of movies, but they had really good messages. You know, anti-war, anti-Catholic priests molesting little boys. And then you had Slumdog Millionaire kind of brings everything, all that together. So from an enjoyment standpoint, I would definitely put that's my top 10. Number 1, Slumdog. Number 2, Birdman. Number 3, Argo. Number 4, 12 Years a Slave. Number 5, The King's Speech. Number 6, Moonlight. Number 7, The Shape of Water. Number 8, Spotlight. Number 9, The Hurt Locker. And number 10, The Artist. All right. Let's pull these down real quick. Let's hop into the technical. I gotta pull my board down. We're gonna rank these technically, and then we're gonna rank them overall. All right. So technically, as I mentioned earlier, number 10 is Spotlight. It, like I said, it's just even production of Spotlight isn't that great. It's set in Boston. It's fine. It's not like that long ago. So you're when was Spotlight set? Like 19. Spotlight is set in 2001. I was gonna say 98, 99, but 2001. So it's set 17 years ago. Not too hard to reverse this back to 2001. I mean, it's fine. It's a fine movie. It should have lost the award. This should have lost Best Picture to The Revenant, which is a spectacular, gritty, hard movie to get through sometimes, but just breathtaking landscape. I mean, obviously, Best Picture went to Leonardo DiCaprio that year, his first one, finally, but the movie is amazing. How this won over that is silliness. And if you want to go with something that's hard hitting but also well made, The Big Short's just a better movie. Like I would much rather watch The Big Short over and over and over again. I thought the way they cut it all together, the way they did the docudrama, Spotlight didn't deserve to win. Number 2, I have The King's Speech. Given this was set back further, so your set design was a little better, but honestly, it just felt like England. I felt like we were in England a few years ago. It was fine. Nothing spectacular required to pull it off, I guess. And that's sort of how I felt. I feel like technically, for me, I'm more about the aesthetics. I enjoy great set design. I enjoy um, impressive camera work, sort of like in Birdman, or even like Moonlight, how they're and then or a very creative narrative and the ability to pull that narrative together, like Moonlight, where you have 3 different pieces coming together, like Dunkirk, where it's the three that are being brought together. Um, yeah, it just wasn't. Argo is fine. It is good. I mean, all of these at the end of the day are well-made movies, well-made, well-funded movies, and the quality of the film is great. But compared to the others, they're less. Number 4 or number 7, I've got The Hurt Locker. More technically challenging than the 3 beneath it, but less technically challenging than the 6 above it. It is. I mean, it's a war movie. It's gritty. The production and set design is well done. I do feel like it's something we've done before. I feel like it's been done better. It was done better by Saving Private Ryan. I mean, different era, but still. It was done better by Black Hawk Down, which is, in my opinion, a better movie. But obviously, still technically impressive. It's it's a best picture. I would have had upbeat it, but it's still not a bad piece of this list. Next up, we have Moonlight. Oh, sorry, no. Yeah. Next up, we have Moonlight. That's correct. And Moonlight makes it to number 6 above the other 4 thanks to its 3 narratives and thanks to the camera work. Which, I mean, honestly, I just really enjoyed Moonlight. I thought it was very well produced. I thought it, like I said, the way they bring together the 3 different narratives and the way, I mean, to be able to bring in 3 different um, 3 different actors to play the same character, and I think it's 3 different characters. I mean, they do that twice with his friend. So, and the way they're able to bring those all together, I think that'd be a very technically challenging thing to do for a director. I think it'd be very hard to get the right um, performances from your actors to be able to make that a cohesive story. All right, number 5, we've got The Shape of Water. Now, like I said, all of it. I mean, I was very hard against Spotlight and King's Speech, but kind of 8 and above, technically speaking, are very well-made movies. The Shape of Water at number 5. Production and set design is just amazing. I mean, everything about it, everything. I mean, this feels very steampunk. The colors are very rich and vibrant and unique. Using teal, deep reds. Like, this is Guillermo del Toro did a great job with this movie, and the way they're able to have the fish man, like and how realistic he looks. If he's CG, then I couldn't even tell. Couldn't even tell. This is a very well made movie. Number. Do I have that number? All right. Putting you down. Hold on. Yeah, that's probably more accurate. Number 4, I've got 12 Years a Slave. The realism of this movie is staggering. The ability to, I mean, the setting is perfect. It brings you back to antebellum United States. The outfits, the sets, everything about this movie. I mean, everything about this movie was well produced. I mean, and the shot, the camera work is stupendous. I mean, really, really well made movie. Number 3, I've got Birdman. I've already lauded its technical prowess, and I will laud it again. The weaving of Birdman, and the Alive and Kevin Costner, and the quick cuts and making him there but not there, and the way they're able to have him move things with his mind, quote unquote, and make you think that that's actually happening when it's most likely just him grabbing it. Like, it's I'm a big fan of Birdman. Big fan. Number 2, I've got The Artist. Though a very boring movie in my opinion due to the lack of sound, The Artist was a very technically pristine movie. The camera work, I mean, it really does take you back to being on a silent film and using body language rather than words. And I mean, Jean Dujardin deserved his Best Actor award. I mean, it truly was a great performance. And number 1, and you can see where this list is eventually going, is Slumdog Millionaire. I'll be like I said, after rewatching all these movies, I just fell in love with Slumdog. The constant back cuts, the constant like going backwards to look at his past and bringing like all of the different pieces, bringing it all together into a cohesive story and narrative. I mean, being able to tell his story from start to finish, but while jumping around, and to also represent the horrors of the Indian slums, and still tell a heartwarming story. I mean, this is a great movie. It's a great movie. All right, let's rip them down one last time and give the final awards that are, I mean, you kind of probably can see some of them coming. Really? Maybe I should need to click. All right. I'm very talented with, as I sit here and mess it all up. All right, let's make, there we go. All right. Coming in as no surprise, number 10 would be Spotlight. ranking as number 8 in enjoyment and number 10 is technically. It reviewed the worst of all the movies. Coming in at number 9, ranking at 5th in enjoyment and 9 in technical, is The King's Speech. My enjoyment was not able to bring it up. Coming in at number 8 in enjoyment, overall, was The Hurt Locker. This one came at number 9 in enjoyment, number 7 in technical ranking. Is that? Oh, largest, smallest, largest. Sorry, I've got those two backwards. Excuse me. Got Hurt Locker at number 9 and King's Speech at number 8. It's like those numbers don't add up. To bring some sort of objectivity to my subjective rankings, I am doing this by the average of their score. Coming in at number 7 is The Artist. Though a technically fantastic film, at the end of the day, this amateur film critic finds it very boring. But it's technical. I mean, it was just technically brilliant. I mean, quite frankly, technically brilliant. Coming in at number 6 is The Shape of Water. This one really surprised me. I expected, after all the negative fish sex comments, to rank this one much lower. But at the end of the day, it is actually an enjoyable film, if uninspiring at the end, because, like I said, the narrative is kind of just blah. It's just like taking the skin, like if you play any video games, you have different skins for your weapons or for your character. It felt almost like Avatar, where Avatar is a science fiction skinned Pocahontas. This felt like that. This was a very original skin, I suppose, with an amphibian set in, the Cold War. But the narrative just wasn't enough to bring it up any higher. Coming in at number 5, we've got Moonlight. Both a combination of narrative and, in my opinion, technical brilliance from a director and actor's perspective. It did win Best Supporting Actor. I believe that was from Maher. I can't. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can do my best to actually pronounce his name correctly. I am most likely going to fail because Mahershala Ali, who was, I love everything he's in. I love him. I should say, I love him in everything that he's in. I thought he was fantastic, and he won Best Supporting Actor and was well deserved. And I just think he's great. Coming in at number 4, I have Argo. And I have the ability to move around my little board. It is a very enjoyable film that was also, obviously technically capable, but also just very enjoyable. I had it at number 3 in enjoyment, number 8 in technical. It's just, it's a really good movie. It's heartwarming. The setting is perfect. I actually should look. I'd love to know where they actually filmed it, since it's such an Iran negative film. They couldn't have done it there, but very well crafted storyline. I guess you always know they're going to escape, but you're not. But it does keep you. That last phone call being made to the airport does keep you at least a little bit on the seat of the edge of your seat. Number 3, I have the movie I couldn't get through, and that's 12 Years a Slave. I am gonna get through it. I will go back and watch this. But I mean, to be able to bring me to the point that I was within, I think, 20 minutes, and the combination of technical brilliance and despite turning it off, I still enjoyed being taken to that place, and I'm getting it back. I am going to watch it. I'm going to watch it. So drum roll, I guess. If we're drum roll, please. My number 1 film would be Slumdog Millionaire, leaving my runner-up as Birdman. So Birdman, I will go into Birdman first, but I have Birdman number 2. This was actually it felt close, but not at the end of the day, because I think Slumdog it hits every single note for me, whereas Birdman, it just doesn't hit the crescendo as high as Slumdog. It is a wonderful. It's actually a very artsy film, I'd say. It in its ability to tackle depression and the difficulty of disappointment in life, to have achieved a certain grandeur and to have fallen off and never have gone any higher in your life. It's very poignant. It's very presented very interestingly. That's something that can get driven into the weeds, but using metaphor and using his alter ego in Birdman to. It's actually one of the reasons I really enjoy fantasy and sci-fi. I like to be able to go, and this would be technically fantasy from his delusion standpoint. I like the ability to kind of bring about not just life lessons, but like life difficulties through fantastical means rather than trying to just bring them to you straight up. Like Moonlight. Moonlight is straight up. It's in your face. This is what it was like. There's no metaphor to it. Whereas Birdman kind of achieves. I mean, obviously not as hitting as a subject, but its ability to bring it to you in metaphor form, I think that you can get more across to people through metaphors than trying to just slap them in the face. Hey, being black and gay is hard. I mean, I did get that message, but I think it can be brought to you in a much more narrative-like way, I guess. I think that Moonlight was perfect. I'm not saying that in this case because I think that as an American people and as a film audience, we needed that. It's a subject that's not covered very, being both black and gay, where like being black in America is difficult as it is. You're disadvantaged, but then also to be gay where you're rejected by your own people. Black people, generally speaking, rely on each other to support them, whereas if you're found out to be gay, in that, at least in Moonlight, he was then rejected by his own people. So anyway, I enjoyed Birdman's ability to bring me the message in metaphor. Anyway, number 1, I had Slumdog Millionaire. If you look at, a lot of these are about hardship. To lesser degrees, some. But Spotlight is about the hardship of the Catholic, of the children abused by the Catholic Church. Hurt Locker is about the detriment of war. King's Speech is about the hardship of overcoming, a speech impediment. Artist is kind of the difficulty of being passed by. Moonlight is the difficulty of being, you know, kind of a doubly disrespected person. I mean, a group, both homosexual and black. 12 Years a Slave is about slavery. Birdman's about kind of losing, never achieving the greatness that you once had, and or even being even greater. And then Slumdog Millionaire. I mean, every movie's gonna have something to overcome. Argo has something to overcome, but it's more of just a story. It's not about a movement. It's not about like an overall feeling. Same thing with Shape of Water. I mean, yeah, you could say it's a narrative about people who are different, but I don't really feel like that's what it's about. At the end of the day, it's not what I felt like it was about anyway. And then Slumdog Millionaire is about the difficulties of growing up poor in India, which is something that millions of people. I mean, it's a billion. There are a billion people in India, and the income inequality in that country is so well portrayed in this movie, and the horrific things that happen, and this kid's story of overcoming it, and the fact that it takes basically a miracle for him to overcome it, and the just how amazing of a movie, like the cinematography of it, the narrative, it all comes together for me. This is my number one Oscar Best Picture winner over the last 10 years is Slumdog Millionaire. Um, I if you haven't seen it, go see it, or rent it, buy it, whatever. This is a fantastic movie. Um, at the end of the day, I mean, for me there's a gap between 1 and 2, and I really liked Birdman. So I love it. I think Slumdog's that this is one of the better movies I've ever seen, hands down, any era, any year. So anyway, this one's gone long. I've gone. This is a long one, but had a lot to cover. If you're still listening to us, I appreciate it. Wherever you're catching us, if you're on Twitch, we are live. Twitch.tv/2m2s every Tuesday and Thursday. If you're catching us on a podcast, we are available on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. We just got on Radio Public, Castbox. So wherever you're catching us, if you could follow, like, subscribe. If you're on iTunes, hit us with those 5 stars if you liked it. It would be very much appreciated. Anything you do. Like I said, if you have anyone you think would enjoy the pod, please share the message. But that is all I have for today. If you're in Twitch chat, we'll do a little quick Q&A. I don't have time. I really need to go to sleep. I got an early morning. But we'll do a little Q&A after this. But if not, then I will catch you this Saturday when we do sports. And next week, I think we're going to do part 3 of how to fix America. But again, I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Peace. That was a long one. And it's 6-6, isn't it? Isn't that wonderful? All right. I don't think there's anybody here, so peace out.